Good morning, second last day of the mini cut. Here's how the physique is looking. Pretty decent. Gonna go do my 30 minutes of cardio first, then I'll talk to you guys later. So, just like that, this mini cut is coming to an end. So today is a week 7 progress update. But not only that, I'll be doing a full mini cut recap just to reflect on the progress, some of the lessons learned, and potentially what I could have done better, right? So let's just get on with it. So I wrote down everything right here just so that I do not miss anything. So firstly, let's start with the week 7 progress update, right? So this week we gained an average of 0.1 kg. So for the past 2 weeks, honestly, it hasn't been the best in terms of weigh-ins. Okay, sort of ran into a plateau, right? So this is not desirable, but then we are coming to an end already, so no worries about that. So let's talk about some of the goods and bads in terms of the mini cut recap, right? So let's start off with the bad thing. So definitely the first thing that we did not successfully do in this mini cut is to meet our expectation of 1% fat loss per week, right? So average, if I were to calculate based on two different data, right? One is with the average weekly weigh-ins. Okay, for that we lost about average of 0.45 kg per week. Okay, so that is including the 2 weeks of plateau. Okay, but if you're comparing day 1 versus today's weight is 3.5 kg. So divide by 7 weeks, that's about 0.5 lah. So both numbers are quite close. Okay, so if you are talking about how much is that, right? Let's just do some math. Okay, so let's say 0.5 divided by 0.85. Yeah, so we are only losing about 0.5% of our body weight per week. Okay, so in terms of like if this number is absolute fat loss, right? Honestly, this is quite a good amount to be losing. Okay, so we will discuss that later, right? So second thing is of course never hit. And another bad thing that I noticed during this mini cut is like the last couple of weeks my sleep started to get quite disrupted. Okay, in a sense that I tend to wake up in the middle of the night, 3-4 a.m. that kind. I also noticed that it's tougher for me to go to bed, right? So I'm not sure if that is just some of the diet fatigue kicking in. So this is also what I realized in my previous cut. Okay, sleep was definitely quite poor towards the end as I got leaner. Okay, so that's just something that I noticed. Okay, apart from that, I think this whole mini cut, okay, in terms of adherence, okay, I think I did almost perfect. The only thing is I had one unplanned cheat meal, but that, can you really blame me? It was crap. Okay, one of my favorite food. Okay, so that's all the bad things that I have to say about this mini cut, right? So in terms of the actual weight loss, it's just that I could have potentially lose more body fat or potentially cut it at 5 weeks instead of 7 weeks, because essentially I sort of plateau in the last 2 weeks, right? Okay, although I visually feel that I'm leaner, right? Comparing the progress pics, I actually put a poll up on my Instagram and asked some of my followers that whether week 5 and week 7 is there any visual, because sometimes as you are coaching yourself or you are doing this on your own, right, sometimes it's difficult to be objective. Okay, I don't want to be biased, right? So I let them be the judge, and then most of them say it's either the same or week 5 is slightly leaner lah. So but of course sometimes day to day you can look different just based on how flat you are, how much water you retaining, that kind of thing. Okay, so granted, potentially I could have just cut at week 5 in terms of like this mini cut, right? So that I maybe can save myself from that 2 weeks of like bad sleep. Okay, but yeah, I don't think it's that big of a deal. Okay, so now let's move on to the good things, right? So I think number one, I have to say that throughout this mini cut, okay, maybe towards the last 2 weeks, my strength has been either going up. I've been hitting a couple PRs, especially on my leg movements, okay, and then really back also, right? But I think strength-wise, I did a very good job in maintaining them, okay, except my presses, okay. And in terms of pressing, right, only the last 1 to 2 weeks, then I noticed a drop in strength, and I also fell sick for a couple of days in one of the weeks. So honestly, I think it's really as good as it can get, okay? If you are hitting PR in a deficit, right, that is really the ideal scenario, right? If not, maintaining is really just as good, okay? So I think in terms of that, I'm very happy, okay? Secondly is throughout this 49 days, okay? So we will be doing one more day tomorrow, okay? But 49 days, that I did not really experience much of a hunger or craving. Okay, granted, craving, I am able to incorporate with my diet, incorporate my craving into my diet because like I have sufficient, I'm dieting with sufficient calories and with the added fact of like the no hunger, right, it allows me to enjoy those slightly more caloric dense foods. This is why hunger and craving usually come hand in hand okay, sometimes, okay. Why this is important? Because this is your so-called like diet fatigue, right? How long can you stay within the how long can you stay in the diet depends on your hunger and craving level, because this is closely related to like your adherence level. Because if it's unmanaged, okay, then it will lead to like binge episodes. That this is where that you just lose control and then you eat whatever, yeah. So if I were to recall, I think out of the 49 days, right, I don't think that is like 5 days that I remember being really hungry, okay? I don't even think there's a day that I was really hungry, but definitely there was days where I felt that after eating my meal, I was still hungry and I want more food, okay? But after a while, that will subside, okay? So really, if you think about it, let's say that there's 5 days, right? That is less than 10% that I'm dealing with any sort of like hunger or craving, right? Which is honestly, in terms of like the fatigue level, right? I can essentially continue this cut, okay? But then that's not the point also. Okay, so ultimately we have to look at the goals of this mini cut. For me, myself, right, is really just to take a break from the lean bulk, cut some of the fat, right? Because at the end of the lean bulk, I estimate my body fat percent to be around 15 to 16%, which is the highest I want to go in terms of remaining lean, right? Because I want to be able to stay at a body fat percentage that is optimal for building muscle, right? So usually that range can be anywhere between 10 to 15%. So my purpose of this mini cut, right, was also to drop my body fat percent to that within that range, so that I can sort of like a runway, right? Okay, you want to extend the runway. So nearing the end of my lean bulk, I was at 15-16%, which is the end of the runway already. So this mini cut is mainly just to take a break, okay? Also reset my appetite, because nearing the end of my bulk, it was getting quite tough to eat so many calories, okay? Sort of reset like the appetite back, right? And also build more runway for it. So I think in terms of this, which brings me to like the third good thing is, okay, although I did not lose my target of 1% body weight per week, right? Only half of that, right? But visually, okay, I am exactly where I want myself to be, which is at the lower end of that 10 to 15% range, okay? If I were to estimate my body fat percent is somewhere around 10 to 12%, okay? Exact number, okay, I'm not too particular, but as long as you are on the lower end, okay, you essentially is in a very good starting position for another nice clean bulk, okay? Maybe if you're on a higher side, okay, then you want to be more conservative so that you can drag the duration longer, okay? But for me, that is also another good point, okay? I think, okay, so let's talk about another good / bad okay. I'm not sure how to really describe this, okay, but just to share with you transparently how I exactly feeling, okay. So because I have been shredded before during like my prep for competition, so my standards in terms of leanness is definitely higher than normal, people, right? So even though I am at a very optimal body fat percentage for building muscle, right, I feel that I'm not as lean as I want to be. Okay, that is just like my personal standards. Okay, but honestly, why I say this could be a good or bad thing is because like we have to come and think back into like what is the objective of this mini cut, right? Ultimately, it is not to look the best. Okay, it's really just to be in the optimal position for a lean bulk. So this mini cut, I have said throughout like this entire journey, right, that it is supposed to be like a part of your lean bulk, right? So let's say if I were to, you know, go to where I want to be in terms of leanness, I think most probably it will be around the 8 to 10% range. Okay, so we have to think about what are the consequences in being that lean, right? It's definitely in terms of like building muscle, 10 to 12 versus 8 to 10. 10 to 12 is definitely a better position in terms of like healthy, less diet fatigue. Okay, because you have to understand when you are experiencing things like diet fatigue, strength loss, and then maybe your sleep is disrupted, which are the side effects or like the consequences that come from being at a body fat that is like 8 to 10%. You have to understand the body priority is really not to allocate the resource into building muscle, right? So that's the thing that, you know, I have to really pull myself back. Okay, honestly, because I do not have much diet fatigue, right, I really was quite tempted to extend this and make this to a full cut, right? Maybe diet until 12 weeks, okay? And definitely I will be like 8 to 10% or even 6 to 8. But then it's like you are digging a hole, right? Basically, I have to dig myself back out before I can start lean bulking again. Okay, so although it will satisfy I will feel good being that lean or shredded, right? But in terms of like my long-term objective of building muscle, right, is going to I will waste more time instead. Okay, so that's something that I say I just want to be transparent with how I'm feeling versus like, you know, what is actually good for you in terms of like what you should be doing. Okay, end of the day, you have to really understand like what is your goal, right? For me, it's really just to build as much muscle as possible for now, because I really want to like see what am I capable of in terms of like my natural limits, right? Okay, I want to see if I am, you know, consistent with everything, nutrition, training, etc. Where is my potential versus because like I said, this is because I have always been, throughout my lifting journey, I have always been in a deficit for the majority part of my time, of the time, right? So just want to do something different for now. Okay, so that's the good and the bad, right? So let's talk about like some of the things that maybe I could do better next time when I attempt another mini cut, right? So I feel that, okay, now I have a better idea. Okay, so definitely I underestimate like my maintenance calories and all, right? Okay, why I did not adjust is because if you remember, I think like 1 or 2 weeks back, I was quite tempted to really push the calories lower just to hit that 1%, right? But why I did not do that is because like in terms of like body fat percentage wise, I'm already happy with where I'm at, right? And then also because of the diet fatigue, it was like close to none. So think about it, okay? Ultimately, when we look at the main objective, which is to try to be at an optimal body fat range, right, we do not want to jeopardize that. Okay, so let's say if I push to 1%, okay? Let's just talk numbers here, right? So if I were to hit my 1% target, right, I would have lost a total of like 5.9 kg, okay? But instead, I only lost a total of 3.1 to 3.5 kg lah. So almost like 60%, okay, instead of like 0.6% instead of the 1%. Okay, so definitely I feel why this 1% number is good is because that's the maximum amount of fat you can lose effectively. Okay, so if let's say I were to hit target at 1%, right, and then lose like 5.9 kg, okay, I can tell you 80 to 90% of this is going to be mostly fat. Okay, because of the way I am consistent with my diet, right? Okay, and in terms of the visual leanness, I I'm very confident that I will be well within the 8 to 10% body fat percentage. Okay, but that's where we have also think about like the consequences, right? Okay, I wouldn't know. Okay, but if I were to guess, definitely more hunger and craving. Okay, because just to give you an example, right? So I was dieting at 2.4 kcals. If I need to achieve that, right, I need to be dieting at about 2 to 2.1 calories. Okay, so 300 calories, okay, majority of it is going to come from carbs. So 75 grams of carbs per day, okay. So if you think about it, 75 okay, is a lot in terms of glycogen, right, to be used for training. Okay, so not only like maybe I might maybe I'll be looking at more hunger, more craving. Okay, I got a feeling that my training performance might be affected as well, right? So maybe strength gains may not be able to be as good as it was. Like I'm hitting PRs. Okay, this I remember like there's a cut that I am PRs. Usually it doesn't happen this way lah. Okay, for me, and for my experience. Okay, but yeah, that's the reason why I do not push the calories lower for the last 2 weeks, even though I sort of running into a plateau, right? It's because like I'm already at where I want, okay? And sometimes it's very hard to know whether it is an actual plateau or it's just like you already lost the fat, but then it's water retention. Because visually I feel that I was getting leaner day by day as well, right? So a lot of consideration to when it comes to making adjustments. This is why sometimes mini cut is better to maybe be more aggressive. Okay, so that is something that maybe I want to look into in the future, which is like I don't mind. Okay, so I feel that if I were to go for the 1% target, okay, it cannot be 7 weeks. Okay, maybe what I can consider next time is for the 1%. Okay, but do like a 4 to 5 weeks mini cut. Okay, because I also noticed that my strength starts to dip at the last 2 weeks. Okay, so sometimes maybe it's the duration also. Like how long are you in the deficit for? Okay, I wouldn't know until I really test it out for myself lah. Okay, so I wouldn't mind exploring this strategy in the future. But honestly, I wouldn't even mind doing the exact same plan, which is like a more conservative mini cut, super sustainable, can still progress in strength. Okay, that kind of thing. Okay, but like I said, that will be a decision for the future lah. Okay, so let's see what else. Yeah, but okay, one thing I can say is like this pace is definitely a very good pace for like a traditional cut, right? Because like I said, honestly, if right now if I were to continue cutting, most likely I will make some adjustments. I might not even drop calories, but maybe throw in some refeeds, okay? Or maybe do both, which is like drop calories plus refeed. So overall caloric intake will still be, like in terms of weekly, it will be the same. Okay, it's just that manipulate the a bit just to try to spike leptin, boost metabolism, that kind of thing, right? Okay, but I think roughly that's what that's like the whole mini cut recap, right? So if you're interested, okay, maybe I'll put a transformation. Okay, so this is day 1 and then day 49, right? See like the visual difference in terms of body fat percent. Okay, so what's next? Okay, so tomorrow I will still be doing one more day of deficit. Okay, same 2400 calories. Okay, macros, everything same. Okay, then after that I will be transiting back into a lean bulk. Okay, how I want to approach it was, if you guys remember, I already mentioned, like basically I want to calculate what is the average weight loss, and then I will add that calorie amount back. Okay, so right now what we discovered is around we lost about 0.45 to 0.5, right? So that is about a 450 to 500 calories deficit that we are in. So if we were to add back these calories to my current calories at 2.4k, we most likely will get the maintenance. Okay, but like I said, because there is a 2 weeks plateau, sometimes I do not know how accurate this is. Okay, so I'm not sure. Either I add this 500 calories, which will bring it to about 2.9k, or maybe add like just a little bit to make sure that I'm immediately in a surplus to start gaining already. Okay, because like I said, as much as possible, this whole mini cut has been great. Okay, no diet fatigue, strength has been there, okay, still hitting PRs. So as much as possible, if I can, transit back into a lean bulk without any further damage to the fatigue and then the strength, right, it will be the best. Okay, so like if can start gaining immediately, that is like, as good as like I didn't really sacrifice any consequences just to get rid of the body fat lah. Okay, so maybe I'll let you guys know my like actual decision, but that's basically how I'm gonna proceed. Okay, because like I said from the past experience, the past cut, right, once I start adding back calories, right, okay, my metabolism starts to go crazy. That means maybe it's just an adaptation thing, right? But basically, I continue to get even leaner after bumping it up to maintenance, right? So I'm not sure whether this will be the same for this case, right? And if it's going to be the same, right, I want to make sure that I do not waste any more time, still being in the deficit. If that makes sense, right? Because let's say 2.9k now, right, is estimated maintenance based on like the past 7 weeks of data, right? Okay, but my true maintenance might not be 2.9. So if let's say I go to 2.9, or then my body starts to adapt, maybe go up to 3 or 3.1, then I will still essentially be in a deficit, which is like, I feel no point lah, because like as much as possible, I'm already at a very optimal state for building muscle. I want to take advantage of it, especially coming out of a cut, right? Your body is definitely prime, okay? It wants that nutrients to start building, right? So I want to deprive myself from that phase. So I'm not sure, okay? Like, but most probably our minimum should be 2.9 kcals lah, okay? I will see how it goes. So that's all for the recap, okay? And then I'll see you guys tomorrow for the last day.